terms of Texas Tech's defense, we all know the big change last year. Ruffin McNeil takes over this squad. We know the stat over the last 8 games of the season, top unit in the Big 12. The question remains now is, how did that happen? You know, how did that occur? And yesterday, you know, Darcel McBath, the senior safety, spoke about the attitude and the change since Ruffin took over. And let's look at that from Monday's press conference.
I mean, since he took over, I mean, that's all he's been preaching, you know, and all those things I just said. And since, I don't remember, the 4th or 5th game last year, he's been saying the same thing. So you hear it for almost a year now. I mean, it's gonna get in your head somehow.
You know, and you got to start up front with the defensive line. And Adam, we could possibly see some newcomers make an immediate impact on this unit.
Well, yeah, that's right. One guy I'd look out for, Brandon Cisse. He's big, he's athletic, he's gregarious. I think he's someone who can really, you know, we talked about attitude. He's someone who could really bring kind of a swagger to this defense. You watch him in practice, he's hooping and hollering and running around, giving guys high fives. Seems to bring a lot of energy about him. Another thing that I saw the other day, this is a little bit of, not really football related, but I think it speaks to the type of guy he is, maybe the type of poise he has. He's doing a TV interview the other day. Guys talking, asking him questions. A teammate comes over, starts tugging on his shorts, messing with his legs, trying to get a rise at him, trying to get him off his game.
Right.
Cisse stood there, straight-faced, didn't flinch, stayed with the interview. The TV reporter had no idea what was going on. He's a guy, I think, who can really, he's that type A type of player who can really put a spark in this defense.
You mentioned type A type of player. I don't know if you mean from a talent standpoint or from a personality standpoint, but he kind of has I was going to say, he kind of has a type A personality too, because there were times during this training camp, there was one day when he kind of got into it with Marlon Williams, and you know, you saw some other times where he was, I guess the thing from that standpoint, I think that's most notable is he's a guy who didn't seem out of place for it to be his first time in a you know, Division I preseason camp. It seemed like he really got into it and matched the intensity that you kind of need to come in and play a key role early. And then, you know, fairly late, about 2/3 of the way through training camp, they moved him inside and played him at defensive tackle. And now this week, Ruffin McNeil said you can see him as maybe the second guy in the rotation at one of the defensive end spots behind Jake Ratliff, and the second guy in the rotation at a defensive tackle spot behind Ray John Henley. So he's not a starter, but he is a guy that, you know, he's 6'6" and 280 pounds, and that's something that you don't see on the offensive line or defensive line much at a defensive end. So they're trying to get him into the mix at multiple spots.
He might be a guy, I think, who maybe emerges, you know, who can be a versatile guy. Maybe he gets better as the season goes along. He gets more used to the system, gets more used to playing with his teammates. So he could be someone by the end of the year, people are really talking about him.
Yeah, and another guy you might want to keep an eye out for, Chris Perry, the transfer from the University of Miami. He's been in the mix in the first 3 units throughout fall camp. And, you know, something they said the other day, I think Darcel McBath said Monday, this is 3 rotations deep. I mean, this is a big, deep group.
It's probably the deepest. It's the deepest on a defensive line that I can remember from a Tech defense, and I'm hard-pressed to remember since when. You know, I think it's legitimate when they say you can go first string, second string, third string, not see a real big drop off. There are guys, you know, 3 deep who will play. You mentioned Perry's, who transferred from Miami. He's a guy that, when he did transfer, Mike Leach and some of the coaches said he needed to get into shape. Didn't see him make a whole lot of plays in the fall. He's a guy who has a high ceiling, though. I mean, he's going to be. You have to remember the thing with him is he's still just a freshman. This is his 2nd semester in college. Right now, he's listed 3rd at one of the defensive tackle spots, but I think he's also in one of those positions where they see enough in him that you could see him on the field, even though he's listed 3rd team right now.
Yeah, and it's a hard group to crack. I mean, you talk about Jake Ratliff and Colby Whitlock in the middle. I mean, returning freshman All-American.
There's a couple of your Oklahoma guys there.
Yeah, exactly. You know, And then right behind them, the linebackers, Don. This is a group they shifted around a little bit through the camps, but the one solid point and the guy I think they expect to have a big season out of is Brian Duncan.
I mean, he's a guy who has probably more maturity than you expect to see from a lot of players. In his case, when he was a freshman last year, comes in, starts 9 games. The unusual thing was, Mike Leach limits player access during the season, and Brian Duncan, who was a redshirt freshman last year, wound up as team spokesman, or one of the few team spokesmen, going to the news conferences on Mondays. Because he's kind of a guy, the way he carries himself, kind of a rare maturity for a kid who's 19 or so years old. He's though more excited this year because last year they plugged him in and he played strong side linebacker. He's a guy who grew up playing middle linebacker, loved it, felt like that was his natural position. And after last season when they lose Paul Williams, who was one of the few senior starters on this team, the middle linebacker spot was open, and they decided to slide Brian Duncan in there. And so he's real happy because he's back where he grew up playing. The thing that they got to have out of this group, though, whether it's from him or Broughton Bird, who's the strong side starter, or Marlon Williams, who's the starter on the weak side, is they got to have more playmaking this year than they had last year. Because last year, that if you look at it as a group, they only had 5 sacks and 3 interceptions, I believe it was. Just didn't make a whole bunch of plays behind the line of scrimmage. Didn't make a whole bunch of plays to change momentum. I think that's what this group needs to maybe set as a goal for this coming season.
Right, and guys, you look at the secondary right behind them. Depending on how you look at it, they're having to replace half of their starters roughly, but you got 2 veteran individuals back there in Jamar Wall and Darcel McBath. But I think the thing that we got to answer immediately is L.A. Reid, who has went down with an undisclosed injury. He's going to be out for some time. What's going on with that cornerback slot right now?
Well, they better find someone quick. You mentioned Jamar Wall and Darcel McBath. It's a good start there, but in this conference, once they get into conference play, right, you got teams that are going to throw the ball like crazy. You got Colton McCoy at Texas, Sam Bradford at OU, Josh Freeman at Kansas.
Yeah, run down the whole conference. Yeah,
it's everywhere. So when he gets into Big 12 play, Texas Tech secondary is going to have to be a strength. They're going to have to be able to keep the other teams off the scoreboard, prevent the deep plays. So I'm not sure what the prognosis is for L.A. Reid right now, or if they've got someone they feel like they can plug right in, but they need to figure it out pretty quick.
And Don, they've got 2 very athletic individuals to step up into that role, including LaRod Moore from Oklahoma City.
Yeah, it's been a battle. After Reid got hurt, and it looks like the injury is going to be probably a shorter-term injury. Saw him yesterday. He's walking around in the orthopedic walking boot. Yeah, and I think that's probably the biggest issue there is simply how quick can the ankle feel comfortable again. And that's obviously, when you're playing cornerback, that's a huge consideration because you're backpedaling, you're stopping, you're starting, you're stopping again and changing directions. So based on the position that he plays, that could be a little more serious injury or it could be a little more significant injury than it might be at another spot. But getting back to who takes his place, LaRod Moore from Midwest City, Oklahoma, and Brent Nickerson from Irving are the 2 guys who have been given, as soon as Reid written down, those 2 guys have been alternating back and forth at his spot by day. One of them goes first string one day, one of them goes with the first team the next day. They're players that need to, I think, elevate their game. They're kind of at the point in the careers where they need to elevate their game because Nickerson is starting his 4th year as a junior. LaRod Moore starting his 3rd year as a sophomore. The pulse that I kind of get from talking to coaches, LaRod Moore's a real athletic guy who was a huge playmaker in high school up there in Oklahoma. Was a big-time recruit. I mean, this is a guy who his official visit, he took an official visit to Notre Dame the weekend of that fantastic USC Notre Dame game where the Trojans won it right there at the end.
Reggie Bush had to push that line across the line.
Yeah, LaRod Moore was there that day as a Notre Dame official visit recruit. Now he's trying to be starting cornerback for the Red Raiders. He's real athletic. Brent Nickerson's strength, these guys a little bit taller, but Brian Mitchell raves about his knowledge of the defense and says he knows everything. He knows everything that not only he's supposed to do, but what everybody else is supposed to do. So it's kind of they're kind of categorized as the one guy's the real athletic guy, but also very bright and intelligent, and the other guy is a taller guy who's a veteran guy who's very knowledgeable.
And talk about the defense, you got to talk about the head dog, Ruffin McNeil. He talked Monday, kind of a funny point. He's just looking forward to Saturday in Eastern Washington. He wants to defend someone other than Texas Tech's offense, and he spoke about that yesterday at the press conference.
We face the best offense in the nation every day, trying to defend Graham and Crab and that offensive line we have and those receivers with Eddie and Emo. That's tough. That's tough duty. I had an afro 2 years ago. And, you see now, so our offense does a great job of moving the ball, stretching you vertically and horizontally. And also now they have a committee of running backs that can really pound you inside. So, whether it was Tulsa or Eastern Washington, I'm just the way Mike has done it for 9 years, and I've been with Mike every second he's been here, is we only get a chance to play one game a week. And Eastern Washington is that one game this week, and that's all our focus has been on. All summer long with Benny, the focus has only been on Eastern Washington, period. So, I'm looking forward to it.